Hi, everybody. Hopefully everything's working. I'll type something and see if I can see comments. Oh, Mitzi made it in. Just a second, let me get my screen bigger so I can see. There we go. So now I can see. Oh my gosh, there's all kinds of people here. You must have been sitting here waiting for me. Hi, everybody. How are you? So hopefully everything works well tonight. We had our little test on Thursday. Everything worked well, so hopefully it'll work well tonight. Looks fine so far. So, is anybody not? Are you hearing me? Are you hearing me? Okay. Can everybody hear me? Are people not hearing me? Not hearing you? Hi, Jan. Are you ready to go back to the store? Yes. I can see and hear you. Okay, people are hearing me. Sound is good. Okay. There we go. Okay. Yes, I am ready to go back to the store. So I just sent out another email just to remind everybody we're going to be open Tuesday through Saturday. So we're not open tomorrow. Tomorrow's Monday. So we're open Tuesday through Saturday in both stores. Oh, it was you, Mitzi? Okay. Everybody's hearing me okay. So I just sent out another reminder email. I just heard it come through on my phone. So it went out at 6 o'clock tonight. And just remember that we're open Tuesday through Saturday. Okay, we're only going to be open 5 days a week for right now. But yes, I am very excited to go back to work. I miss everybody. It's one of those things that you don't think about it. And I've enjoyed my time at home. I feel like I've been working, because I've been doing classes and talking to all of you, and so I feel like I've been working. I've been working on the website. And by the way, I did put up some Kimberbell things on the website today. I have a few more things to put up. I've got a lot of things to put up, but I put up the quilts. The Kimberbell quilts are up on the website now. And I'm going to I need to put the pop rulers up. I didn't get those up this afternoon. I'll do that tonight. And what else? Announcements. Oh, would you like to see what I've been working on this weekend? I've been working on the July. I'm going to start this in July. This is going to be a class we're going to do in July on Sew Along with Jan. And I'm kind of obsessed with the Kimberbell quilts. I'm really enjoying those quilts, and they're cute. They're very fast. Some of them have a lot of blocks, but the one that I'm working on that I thought would be a good one to start with on here does not have tons and tons of blocks. So before we start our class, I'll just show you what I've been working on this weekend. I got 2 rows done. So this is the first 2 rows of We Whisk You a Merry Christmas. And this is a Kimberbell quilt, and we're going to do this in July. Starting in July. I haven't decided which day yet, but isn't that cute? And the top row had like 10 blocks, but the second row, you do a little piecing, and then the second row only had 5. But that's what I've been working on this weekend. I got 2 rows done so far. And this is the book. Oh no, Mitzi, you have to start over. So here's the book. We Whisk You a Merry Christmas. I put this up on the website. I don't have too many in stock, but if people order them, I'm going to be ordering. I'll order this week. But the book has this. It's the book with all the instructions, and then the embroidery designs. This is an embroidered quilt. And then the other thing you would want would be this embellishment kit. This embellishment kit has all the little bits and pieces, so you don't have to run around all over. So this is a really nice little kit. So the books are up there, and the embellishment kits are up there. The fabric-wise, we talked a little bit about it. Tim is not into fabric. What size of hoops do you need? You only need, the biggest one's 6 by 10, Mitzi, you'll be good. Most of the Kimberbell products can be done to 5 by 7 or 6 by 10. So no, it's the biggest one's 6 by 10. So you'll be able to do it. that Tim is not really into fabric, so I would love to be able to. I would love to be able to do the fabric kits. I bought my fabric kit from a little company called Red Roxy. It's a quilt store in Decorah, Iowa, so I know that there was a couple of kits up there. And one of the gals got theirs at my girlfriend's quilt shop out in Utah. That's the one that, you know, Kimberbell has kind of out there. And so there's another place you can get your fabric. You can just go buy your fabric yourself. But we'll talk about this a little bit more. But that, I think we're going to do that in July. I wanted to wait till like the middle of July to start it. So after the 4th is when we'll start that. So, but that was what I've been working on this weekend. I also been working on another project for my little sewing group. It's a embroidered, it's a quilt. It's a Christmas quilt called 'Tis the Season, and it's multi-hooped. It's a very cool quilt. So that one I'm working on for my little group too. So we might do some of those on here too, but it's a little bit bigger project. So I'm going to work that out with my other group first. Hi, Lynn. Everybody's here tonight. Okay. So anyway, hopefully everything was working so you can all hear me okay and everything. So I'm glad I did that little test. It made me feel better tonight. I was a little worried about tonight. So, all right. So we're going to put together our Let Freedom Ring tonight. And I've been working on mine. I kind of did some pre-sewing on it so that you wouldn't have to sit here and watch me sew like 24 blocks together. So what I do, the assembly instructions are on page 3 of the instructions. So you want to trim all your blocks first. So what I did is, you know, I gave you the little video with the class about the trimming, and I've got the first 2 rows all sewn together. So what I do is I lay I'm going to turn this camera down here so you can see the instructions. So what I do is I kind of laid my instructions out here, and I got my blocks all trimmed, and I laid them out in my rows. And so I usually sew them together in the rows this way. You know, there's only 3 rows. So I sewed my rows together first, and then I sew my rows to my rows. All right, and with this type of quilt, I want to get the whole, or the wall hanging, I want to get the whole thing sewn together before we do anything to the back. Because this one, as you can see, let me turn it over here, has raw edges on the back, see? And we don't want all that ugly stuff on there. So we're going to cover those all up. But I like to do all of the whole quilt. I like to have the whole top done before I go and do any of the strips. Okay, so we're going to put little strips over here like bias tape over these to hide them. And we're going to be sewing with a serpentine stitch for that. All right, so I did do the first 2 rows. I wanted to get the first 2 rows put together so you didn't have to sit here and be bored by me sewing this together. So I'm going to show you how I did that with a couple of blocks on the last piece, and then I will, I'll sew the last row on for you. Okay. So the first thing I did, got my blocks all trimmed. So here's my last blocks. This is the last one. And I've got the first part of this row sewn together as well. So this is the last row. And so when I sew these together, I am using, just so you know, I'm using, I like monofilament thread for this because there's so many colors in this. It's hard to pick a color that won't show somewhere if it kind of shows in the seam. So I actually sewed this whole thing together with monofilament thread. All right, and the only type of monofilament thread that I've ever really thought worked well without much problem is Mettler Transfill. I've been using this for a long time, and we have this at the store. It's on the website. I always have it at the store, and they make it in clear or smoke, which is the dark colored one. And this has been the best monofilament. Monofilament's kind of flaky to work with, and the only problem that I've ever had with this is that it likes to lay down. This is one of the few spools of thread that I actually lay down in my machine, is this one. So it likes to lay down in my machine. And when you wind the bobbins, of course we're going to be putting it, tip this up a little bit, you know, putting it up here to wind our bobbin. But, because I usually wind everything else off the thread stand, but this one I lay that down up here. But wind it very slowly. So wind the thread. You can change. Did you know you can change your bobbin winder? Let me turn this on. So when this little thing comes up on your machine, most of you have this little deal that it comes up on the machine. And you see this little thing right here? Not everybody's going to have this, but most of the bigger machines have this. See this little thing right here? This is the speed. So did you see how I had it turned like almost all the way down as slow as it would go? So when I wind monofilament, I wind it really slowly, and you only want to put about 1/4 of a bobbin on. You don't want to try to fill it, because if you fill it, it's going to sply that bobbin and break it. So just do maybe 1/4 of a bobbin and wind it slowly, and that works real well. And I've used this in the bobbin for years, and I've never had any problems with it. So this is Mettler Transfill is what it's called. Okay, so hopefully that explains winding the bobbin with monofilament. I did sew the whole thing together with monofilament, and then we're going to use the monofilament for the strips too. Okay. All right, so to sew this together, when I did this, I kind of did this on purpose because it's easier to see where my actual stitches are. I made these white, but the trick is, of course, we don't want any of that white to show in seams. Okay, so when I sew these together, what I do, oops, I gotta open the drawer so I can get a pin. What I do is I sew, there's 1/4 of an inch seam allowance here, but I don't actually pay attention to that. I like to sew these together, and I stitch basically one stitch inside, so inside this way, inside these stitches that I can see, and I can also see them from the rear, from the back. And I sew one stitch in there, so I really don't pay attention to the 1/4 inch seam allowance, because I don't want this dang little line to show. You know, I don't want any of this little white thread to show in my seam. Okay, so all you have to do, and this is all in the instructions, it says you trim the blocks first, lay the blocks in rows using the picture for reference, and then it says place 2 blocks right sides together and sew just inside the basting stitch. Press the seams open. And I'll show you the pressing. I kind of get tired of them burning my fingers, so I kind of press them different now than I used to. So, okay, so I'm going to turn this one. I've already done the first 6 blocks in this row. So I've got my 3 blue ones over here, and I've got Let Freedom, and I need my ring block now. So I'm going to turn this right sides together. I'm going to get a pin. Now the trick with this, of course, we have these little satin stitches here. We want to make sure those satin stitches line up nice. So what I do is I kind of make sure my satin stitches are lined up, and then I put a pin right by my satin stitches. And we're going to do that on both sides, just to make sure that I've got my satin stitches lined up well. And sometimes, you know, they scoot on me, so then I have to rip, and I've been ripping a lot. You know, that little that little Kimberbell quilt that I'm working on, We Whiskey Merry Christmas. It's actually, you know, when it first came out, I looked at it and I thought, oh, I won't do that. I don't cook, I don't bake. But, you know, I saw it then done, and it is so cute. But it has vinyl on the quilt, and of course, inevitably, I hit the vinyl with the iron. So, of course, I hit it with the iron. All right, so I've got my pins. I'm going to hold those satin stitches so that they won't scoot on me, hopefully. Okay, get this down a little bit closer. Hopefully. Okay. And so what I'm going to do, and it's a little hard to see, so make sure your tail of your monofilament's down underneath here. And I want to sew just inside this white line. And it's a little hard to see. You probably can't see it. I have the needle in the center. So I usually just use the needle in the center. A second here, I got to turn my bottom winder on. I've been using I use the quilt tab a lot So there's two straight stitches. The first one is the straight stitch in the center, and the second one is actually the 1/4 inch piecing stitch. So I've got it on Q01 with the needle in the center right now. I'm going to move this down, and then I'm going to sew just inside this line to the left of it, so that I don't want to see those white threads. I'm going to drop my needle. I'm going to tie a knot. Make sure I got it lined up. I have to put my glasses on for this. Hopefully it's going to behave. Sometimes monofilament likes to misbehave for me, but I think it's okay. I had a little funny spot in my bobbin, so let's see if it's working okay. I think it is. Okay, so let's see how we did. And you notice I slowly went over the pins. I did not take them out, because if I take them out, they always scoot. Okay, well, that looks pretty good. And I can see just a little bit of white over here. Just a little bit. So what I do is if I see a little white, if I didn't quite hit it, I look at the side that I'm seeing the white. So like I'm seeing it on this side. And what I'll do then is I'll turn it over to that side, and then I'll go ahead and I'm going to stitch on that side again. That's how you can take care of those white spots. If you have those little white spots, just turn it over to the side you're seeing the white and stitch it again, because they might have scooted over a little. So I'm just going to stitch this down again, because I could see white kind of all the way down. Let's see how we did this time. Oh yeah, that's much better. Okay? So see how easy that was to do? But if you're seeing a little bit of that white seam allowance, just turn it to the side you're seeing it on, and then you can sew over it again. Okay? All right, so that side looks really good. So let's try another one. So this is the last block of this row. Okay? I'm going to turn it right sides together. Let's get some pins. So hopefully does this make sense to everybody? How I'm doing this? So I'm going to line up those satin stitches. You want the satin stitches to line up nice. Actually, I did pretty well on this one. My original quilt, I had a couple little bobbles on my satin stitches, so I look like I did a better job this time. I made that original sample a long time ago. I think it was probably 10 years ago or more that I made that. I kind of like the fabric I used. This is a little bit more brilliant. So, just fabric I had at home. Alright, so let's see here. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm lining up the center needle position. You know, there's that little mark in the middle of the foot there, and I'm going to sew just to the left of the stitching on the back. Okay, I drop my needle. Always drop your needle before you start sewing. Make sure your thread is under the foot, otherwise it'll unthread every time. Okay. Slowly over the pins. Don't go too fast. Over the pins. Let's see how I did on this one. And I often have to sew them again. You know, if I see the white, I will sew them again. Let's see how I did on this one. Did pretty good. I'm still seeing just a little bit on this side, like right here. So I want to turn it to the side I'm seeing it on. So I'm seeing it on this side. So I'm going to turn it over and just hit that little end. You don't have to do the whole thing. You can just do like the little section, like it was just mostly down here at this bottom part. I'm just going to sew over that and make sure I got inside that line. See, I didn't sew the whole seam this time. I think it'll be all right. Oh yeah, that looks much better. Okay, and my sashing's pretty lined up. All right, so you're going to do that with each of your rows. Okay, do each of your rows, get the 3 rows done, and then we're going to sew a row together. Before I iron these, what I like to do, and I kind of changed the way I do these now. I used to take the seams and open them up like this and try to press them down. And you can do this if you want. I have a hard time doing that because I really, I burn my fingers. And I used to burn my fingers so much and it just hurt. So I finally stopped ironing these open. You can use an awl to hold this. So if you want to iron these open, it's fine. Like this one, this one's actually would open up pretty well. But some of these don't open up very well. So what I do lots of times is I just trim them. I like to trim some of this thread off of here. Oops, got to get my other scissors. I like to trim, or it's not the thread, but some of the fabric off of the edge here, so that it's not as wide. So that way I know my bias tape. So I'm just going to cut off that seam allowance a little bit on those two pieces. That way, when I go to put the bias tape on, it covers up really well. Okay, so I just cut that off. I just kind of cut off that little 1/8 of an inch or so. And now, when I go to iron them, I'm just going to iron it open really well from the front. And hopefully you can see me over here. I didn't put another table up tonight. But you can, I've got my really good iron, you know, that really cool Evolution, Eurosteam Evolution iron. This one works great for these because then it really makes those seams nice and flat. So I really don't have to open them up. I can just steam them nice and flat. Oops. Like that. And they just look a little messy on the back, but they won't in a little bit when we get all done. Okay? This is the best iron for doing this kind of work because they're a little thick, the seams are thick, and I want it to be super flat. And it is very flat. Okay? So all I did was I trimmed, and in the instructions it says to open them up and then trim. So you can do that as well, but I just kind of got tired of burning my fingers because I just burn my fingers all the time. So I finally just started doing them this way, that I trim first and then I steam it and see how nice and flat that row is. Okay? So are there any questions so far? Does this make sense? So we're going to do each row. You're going to sew each of the rows together. And when you're doing your blocks here and trimming your star blocks, make sure they're all going the same way because there is an up to this block. I learned that the hard way because I got one in backwards once. Had to make another block. So make sure that you're getting them all the same way and getting them trimmed in the order they need to go. Okay? The rest of the blocks are a little more obvious. All right, let's get this scissors out of the way. Then we're going to put the row on. So it says, continue joining the blocks into rows, then join the rows together until the whole wall hanging is completed. All right, so that's what we're going to do next. We're going to put this row onto the rest of it. I did this on Friday night. So I'd have some of it sewn together tonight. All right, so then what we got to do then, make sure you get it right side up. That's the first thing. I'm going to back this up a little bit so you can see. All right, right sides together. Going to flip it over. Now we do want to be a little careful when we're sewing this, when we're pinning this together, that we get the seams lined up. So I usually pin around the seam area on each block. So I'm going to pin, going to make sure my seam, so I'm going to kind of roll this out like this so that I can see where the seam is and make sure I have my seams lined up. So I get a couple more pins here. I usually use pins instead of the clips here. The clips seem like they don't hold tight enough for me, so I'm always getting things to scoot on me. So I usually put a pin in. So we're going to make sure our seams are lined up. And put a pin in. all the way down here. Hopefully you can see what I'm doing. I'm going to roll this back so I can make sure my seam's right. This one's not cooperating. There we go. Had kind of a little light gray background for this one. I think the other one was white. I think this the other background was white. And let's get this one. So we're getting to the blue. It's always nice when you get the last couple rows done. And putting the strips on is actually kind of fun. So it goes pretty quick. But I like to have, this one works the best to put it on, you know, to put the strips on the whole row as a whole. So I always put the whole thing together first. I have another quilt that I digitized. I think we'll do this one online one of these days. I did one called the Hunter's Star. I taught it in the store. It's been several years ago now, and I haven't taught it for a long time, so I think we'll do that one on here too. And that one's put together this way, but it's a bigger quilt. So it has like 8-inch blocks, and it comes out to be like a nice lap size quilt. But you put it together the same way. Okay, so we're going to pin this all together. All right, so now we got to do the same thing, except just on a longer scale. We're going to do the same thing we did before. We're going to sew, let me get this out of my way. We're going to sew just to the left of that. Oops, I might put another pin in here. Let's put another pin in this one. So we're going to sew just to the left of that outside stitch, and it's a little harder to see on the rows for some reason. I don't know why, but okay, so we're gonna just tie a knot right there. Okay, so I'm sewing just on the inside. My needle's still in the center, and like I said, I don't really pay attention to the 1/4-inch seam because I know that when I trimmed, I know that line is about 1/4 inch. Okay, so now we're going to come up to this big bump. This is where we remember a few weeks ago we talked about the automatic height adjustment. Make sure that is turned on your machine because that really helps with these big bumps. Go over those pins really slowly. Because you can see the machine goes over those bumps pretty easily, even though they're kind of thick. Make sure I got this lined up here. And we may have to do a little fixing. We'll see how we did when we get down here. I was actually kind of proud of myself for getting all those rows done on We Whiskey You Merry Christmas. I kind of wanted to have it done before I went back to work, but I didn't quite make it, did I? I got it cut out, though, and I got 2 rows done, so that was good. Thought it was going to turn out really good. That one's kind of bulky, so I'm going to kind of turn that one down a little bit. Let's see. It's being a little contrary. There we go. That particular seam just happened to be kind of bulky, so we'll flip it down a little bit more. Just kind of flipped it open. There we go. And yes, I have broken needles doing this. I have a number 11 embroidery needle in my machine. That's usually all I use. I do occasionally put a 14 in when I'm doing stuff like this, but most of the time I don't need it. Okay, this part's going to be a little easier to see because it's got darker thread on it. So I'm just sewing on the inside. Pull that side in a little bit more. There we go. Kind of got this one kind of crooked for some reason. There we go. And let's see how this one is. Watch the pins. Put this just a little bit closer so you can see me end it here. And getting to the end, and I'm just sewing just on Okay, just a second here. I got this pin's gonna have to come out. They must be bent. All right, so let's go ahead and. I know what it is. It's my bobbin doing its little trick again. Yep, now it's mad. See, I made it mad. A second, let's see if I can rethread it. It had a little piece of thread sticking out, so it was kind of catching on things. Let me get that out of there. There we go. Monofilament is a little bit finicky, so you have to, be patient with it. It sometimes causes problems, so I had a couple little ends sticking out in here, and I don't know why, so I think it's okay now. Got to pick up that last little bit, so let's just rethread here. Oops. Sometimes when you go to wind it, it doesn't always, the little ends don't tuck in because it's kind of shiny. And did you mention what kind of pins those are? Oh yeah, these are those pins. I love these pins, Marcia. Yes, these are, I need to order these for the store. I love these pins. These are called magic pins. And they're really thin pins, and they have those longer little things to get a hold of. And they're extra fine. That's the only kind I use. And they're like 1 7/16. So they're about 1.5 inches long. But they're extra fine. I should just order these and put them up on the website because they're from, I can get these, but they're called magic pins. But they have a different gripper on the end. It's just easier to get a hold of them because they're not so small. They have like a longer grip on them. So yeah, I love these pins. I spent a lot of money on pins. Up just a second. Now my machine's mad. Did you hear the funny little sound that my machine made? So, sometimes this happens, right? Okay, a malfunction occurred, you think? So we'll have to turn it off and turn it back on again. Because it was mad. It only has to do this when I'm sewing for people, right? Okay, we'll go back in. It's all happy again. Back to get my straight stitch. Yeah, because I'm going to have to hit that end because I don't think it got the very end of it. All right. So hopefully it'll behave itself now. Yeah, so working with monofilament, you have to kind of be patient with it. Monofilament can be a little bit funny. So I try to be, I don't do much on the bobbin. You can see I hardly have any bobbin thread on here. Can you see I just barely have any? In fact, I probably should wind a little bit more before we start the next piece. But there's not much on it, and you don't need much because it lasts a lot longer than you ever would think. So that's actually plenty of bobbin thread for a while. You wouldn't think it would be, but it lasts a long time. Okay. So let's see how we did. I may have to do some adjustments. So let's take these pins out before I stab myself. Okay. Let's see how we did. No white so far. Looks like I did pretty well. What do you think? Does it look okay? Looks pretty good. So if I would have seen some white, then I would have turned it to the side that I saw the white on. How much are the magic pins? You know, Denise, I'm not sure. I will have to go look. Can I text you later? We don't have pins in the store, and I keep thinking I show these to everybody, and I'm like, I just need to order these and put them in the store and put them on the website because they are really good pins. Because I finally found pins that I like. I have a hard time with pins. I go through tons. I throw away a lot of pins. Okay, so I am happy with that row. I will look it up, Denise, and I will text you after class because I don't know how much they are. All right, so now I want to do the same thing. You could, if you wanted to, just open this up. You know, if you want to burn your fingers, open this up with the iron or with an awl, and you could open this all up straight, and then you could cut this off. But I'm going to trim it first, and then I'm going to iron it open. So let me get my scissors here. And I'm just going to trim off that little piece of fabric that's along the outside edge there, just so that I don't have so much underneath my strip. So I like to just trim it with the scissors. You could just go over to the mat and trim it with a rotary cutter if you want to. Jan, being the poor rotary cutter that she is, I like the scissors. I usually can do better with my scissors. And it doesn't need to be beautiful, because you're never going to see any of this, because it's going to be all underneath our little strips here in a little bit. Although it does make a mess on your sewing machine, as you can see. So trim this off. But I like to do this just to get it narrower, so I don't have any trouble with anything showing on my bias tape. I use a narrower bias tape. When I first started doing these, I was doing some Hoop Sisters quilts, and they use like a 3/4 inch bias tape, but I like 1/2 inch because it doesn't stick. It isn't like all over the design. Especially this is so small that if I had 3/4 of an inch, you know, I had a bunch on either side. Oh, you bought some, Nancy, at a fabric shop? Yeah, I don't know if they're that much or not. There's several different models of these magic pins, and there's also different denominations. So like some, you can get 50 in a package or 100 in a package, so they depending on how many you got. But these fine ones, I just really like them, and they bend real easy. You can see this one's bent. So, you know, this one's going to go in the trash now. So I throw away half my pins. Okay. So now I'm going to take this over to my ironing wool ironing mat here with my cool Evolution, my Eurosteam Evolution iron, and we're going to give it a nice press so that it's nice and flat. It's nice on this one, I don't have to worry about there being vinyl on it. I've been having a hard time with the that Kimberbell quilt, because there was vinyl all over it. This one I didn't get too close, but you know what? I think I can work it in. All right. Yeah, you have to be real careful with all the Kimberbell quilts, because they have adhesive vinyl, heat transfer vinyl, and that clear vinyl. So I'm always having to be careful not to iron it. Okay, so I'm going to turn this over, and I'm going to go ahead and just press the back side too. Sure it's nice and flat. I know it looks kind of ugly on the back right now, doesn't it? But in a few minutes it'll be all pretty and the same color. So don't despair. All right, so there is our ironed wall hanging, and so we're ready to put the strips on the back. What do you think? Pull it back a little bit so you can see it. I think it turned out, I like the colors. The blues and the reds are just a little more, they're deeper, I guess is a good thing, other than the one that I did before. So I just used the fabric I had around the house. This was from a Kimberbell class, and this one I think was from a Kimberbell class too. Or else, no, that was from my dad's quilt. So, you know, I just had some pieces left over. So, are there any questions so far? So is this making sense? So you're going to do this first and get the whole thing put together. And if you don't have one of these irons, go get an iron from QVC. They're like 99 bucks. They're awesome. Because if you want something flat, this is the way you get it flat, because there's 50 pounds of pressure. That's why it's so flat. I just love this iron when I'm doing stuff like this. So my steam iron doesn't do half of what that does. Okay, so the next step on the instructions is talking about the 1-inch strips. And you had to cut a bunch of little 1-inch strips. I can't remember. I think there were 4 widths of fabric, 1-inch strips that you cut and made, and you're going to make them into 1/2-inch bias tape. So what I usually do when I make bias tape, there's a couple ways to do this. So I made my bias tape. I'll put this down here so you can see. So I made my bias tape, okay? What I usually do is I like to you're supposed to have skipped those B's, Nancy. If you read the instructions, you need to skip the B's. What is the iron? Cheryl, it is called the Eurosteam Evolution Iron. And they have them on QVC. That's the easiest place to get them. I wished we could get them for the store, but we can't. The B's, yeah, the B's on the designs, I put the B in there so you just knew where the fabric was going, but you don't need to sew them, okay? So you don't sew the B's. All right, so what I did is I took my 4 widths of fabric, my 1-inch strips, and I sewed them end to end, so they're all in one piece. I like to do my bias tape like this. I like to have this long piece. Then I can just trim it to the size I want it, okay? So I have mine all put together. Now you can do this a couple different ways. I know this isn't the right size, but you can use a standard bias tape maker that you use with an iron. You know, you put the fabric into here and it folds it, and then you just shoot the iron across it like this. I also burned my fingers that way, so I learned another way to make bias tape. Unfortunately, I always show this to people, but unfortunately you cannot get these anymore. You can get them, but they're very expensive. This is my beautiful, this is like one of my favorite toys. This is my Simplicity Bias Tape Maker. So what I do is I put my fabric in, this is that 1/2-inch bias, I'm making 1/2-inch bias tape, and this little thing comes off, and I iron my fabric and put it under here, and this is the iron right here. And then it has a little motor, and it runs it through. I make so much bias tape and like binding and stuff. I just love this thing. You can still get them. They're going to be kind of expensive usually if you can find them. I've got 3. So I just love these things. And but yeah, this is something that I bought. I mean, I've had it for a long time, probably 10 years. But there's a bunch of different tips. And to get the tips, it's hard too, so I can make all my bias tape and all my binding with this. But you might have to get manual ones now if you can't get this. So here's all the tips, like all the different sizes of tips they had. So I have multiples of everything. So anyway, that's my favorite little toy. So I made mine with my bias tape maker. Left it out so you could see it. Okay. So now when we do this, and I know this is going to sound scary. Put the little bias tape maker back there. I made my bias tape, and then the next instruction says to use the Wash Away Wonder tape. And this is something else that I've changed over the years. I found that when I do these, I don't like to waste that tape, so I actually just use some fabric glue stick. So we're going to use some fabric glue stick. Got to find mine. I think it hit the floor here. So we're going to use fabric glue stick. And normally what I do is I pick a direction, and I do all the strips going one direction first and then going the other direction. So I'm going to do these shorter ones just for tonight so that it's easier for you to see. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this over, and I'm going to take my bias tape. Hopefully you can see this. Move a little closer. Take my bias tape. You know, of course, the raw edges are going to go down on the strip so that we see this beautiful piece of tape. And I'm going to take my glue stick, and I'm going to start up here at the top, and I'm just going to run a little glue stick down that seam right there. I'm going to do a little bit at a time. So I'm going to do that, and I'm going to stick that glue stick, or that bias tape, right down over that seam. And the trick is, you know, to keep it as straight as possible. Okay, and then I'm going to continue going down the strip here, so I'll put a little more glue stick. The glue stick works real well for this. It does not work well for the way we put starting over together. So that's why I've found that I can save on that tape, is I can do this method with the glue stick. Okay, and then I'm going to do the bottom part. Oops, there goes the cap. I'm about out of glue sticks. I ordered some more, but they're on back order. Okay, so then I'm going to put this down. Everything's on back order right now. Everybody's kind of getting back to work, so I think it'll be easier to get things. All right, so there's my first strip. It's all glued down. Just going to trim it off here. And I'll leave just a little bit at the end, like that. So we'll get this out of our way. Okay, make sure it's nice and straight. Do the best you can, okay? Now, this is going to sound scary, but we're going to sew from the back of the quilt. I know everybody, the first time we did this, everybody's like, but it's going to show. And it doesn't really show. Once you get going on this, you would be very surprised at how little it shows. So, with that being said, the first time I did these, I did this like with a zigzag stitch. Well, that really showed. So what I found is that serpentine stitch does not show that much. So I love this serpentine stitch. So I use the Q tab, and there's one, it's Q18. That same serpentine stitch is on several tabs. It's also on the number 2 tab of your machine, and it's like number 19 on that tab. So they have the same stitch on several tabs, but I use it on the Q tab because I kind of set up then my sizes that I use. So like for this narrow 1/2 inch bias tape, I like to use the 4 width and 1.2 for the length. So I lengthened it a little bit from normal, and I made it narrower so that it's not, because this is a really narrow piece of bias tape. So that's what I used on starting over also. And when I do the serpentine stitch, and I'm using the monofilament still, I want the when I'm on the right hand side of the strip, so let's put it down here so you can see a little bit better. So when I'm on the right hand side of the strip, I want the right hand side of the serpentine to just barely go off the edge, and I want most of it to be on. And then it's going to be the opposite on the other side. And what I do is I always start from the same side, and things seem to line up better that way, okay? So I'm going to put this down here, and I'm going to, the little, that little mark that's in the center of your foot, if you kind of put that like right on the edge of the strip, on the right edge of it, you're going to hit pretty well. So I got my serpentine, I'm going to drop my needle, and as you can see, I want just the edge that goes off the right to go off the strip, and it's just barely going off. And I'm just going to shoot down this strip. When you get to those bumps, sometimes it's a little bit of a bump, but put that automatic height adjustment on your machine, and you'll hardly even notice. Okay. And you notice that I do not have a walking foot on this machine. I usually do not need a walking foot when I do this, because these machines speed very well. Even the smaller ones do, especially with the new feed system. The newer machines have a new feed system and a longer feed dog. So, oh my gosh, these machines speed well. All right, so we're almost down to the end of that one. So I'm going to cut. And you can kind of, I don't know if you can kind of see it, but then let's go down the other side. So I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Now this time I want the left curls to go just barely off the left side. So again, I'm going to put that little center mark right on the edge of the strip. Put my needle down. And I want it just to barely go off the left-hand side. So I did have to pull the little mark, the little center mark, over to the right just a little bit. Go down this side. It's amazing how much better I remember when I did my first one of these, I thought, oh my gosh, it's so ugly on the back. But you put these little strips on, and it's just so pretty then. And I did use, you don't have to use matching strips. See, I use matching strips that match my backing, but you don't have to. You can do them, you can do colored ones if you want them to show a little bit. All right, so there's our strip from the back. How do you think we did? All right, and then I'm going to flip it over. And you can just barely see it. I mean, can you even see where the strip is? And look, I sewed from the back. Can you even see it? You can just barely see it. You can kind of see the imprint. There, that you can kind of see it. Can you kind of see the imprint of the strip, the serpentine? It looks like it's part of the quilting, basically. All right, so let's do another one. What do you think? You think that'll work okay? And it makes it very flat. Look how flat it is. Now, the one thing that with the serpentine stitch is kind of, you know, it's curly. And if you're not perfectly straight, who's going to know? That's why I started using it. Because when I used the zigzag stitch, you could see it. Like if you were crooked, it looked crooked. But this never looks crooked because it's crooked anyway, right? So that worked a lot better for me. All right, so let's do another one. So I'm going to do all of these I like to do all of these first. We'll do another one so we can do this. And I won't do the whole thing tonight because I think once you get started, you'll know exactly what to do. And then I'll do all of these short ones, and then I'll do the long ones. There's only 2 long ones at the end. So let's put another one on here. Put a little glue stick on there. So is this making sense to everybody? Are there any questions about this? Isn't this easy? It's not hard. And I remember, though, the first time we did this, that everybody's like, oh my gosh, and I know I was scared to sew from the back. I thought, oh my gosh. I know, isn't the serpentine like your favorite stitch? It like hides a multitude of sins, Jackie. All right, so we're going to go down this one. But I remember the first time we did this, I think we did this on, what was the quilt? It was one of the Hoop Sisters quilts that they did the first one. It was like their second quilt that they did this kind of method. And we were all like petrified to sew on the back of the quilt. I can't remember which one it was. Was it called TNT? I think it was the TNT quilt. Had a bunch of really cool little techniques in it. And this was the first time they'd done this. And oh my gosh, when I put it together, I was like, you've got to be kidding me. I'm sewing from the back. I thought for sure it would just look awful. And they suggested using the serpentine. So I tried it, and I just was amazed at how good it looked. Now see, I got this one. I don't know if you can see it. I got this strip just a little crooked. But you know what? You can't see it on the front at all, so I'm not going to worry about it. All right, so let's see. Let's try this one. So we're going to do the same thing. I think I'll trim it off, though. I like to leave just a little end, then I can trim them at the end. All right. Whoops. Get down there. Okay. I'm going to go down to the end. I'm going to put that little center mark right on the edge of the strip. Kind of hold it down, and I've got the glue stick on there. And I'm just going to zip down the other end. So this is a very quick way of putting on the strips. This one's a little crooked, so there you go. You just want it to barely go off the right-hand side. But it's amazing how much prettier this quilt looks after you can put all these strips on. I remember the first time I did, like when I did the Hunter Star, and we will do Hunter Star. I had taught it in a class in the store not too long ago, so I thought I'd wait a little later and do that. But the Hunter Star is all put together this way, but it's a bigger quilt. And you can't even see the quilting on it. I've had people come in and think it was a traditionally pieced Hunter Star quilt. And it's all done in the embroidery machine. Because I had it in the store for a long, long time, but I don't have it there now. In fact, I'm not sure where it is. I'll have to figure out where I put it. It must be in the back bedroom somewhere. When we remodeled the store a couple years ago, I brought a bunch of quilts home, and I didn't bring them all back because I didn't have any place to put them. So some of them are still here. All right, we're going down the other side. I'm just going off just barely off the left. And some of my strips are not perfectly straight, but you know what? Who's going to see it? All right, we're at the other end. And then I'm going to continue down the whole quilt. Just turn it over so you can see both of these strips. Oops, didn't cut, did it? Sometimes the cutters don't like to cut that monofilament too well. Have kind of a, there we go. Must have had a stitch down here. There we go. It was caught. So let's turn this over and see what it looks like. What do you think? You can't even see it. I mean, you can see, like I can see just like the indent of the serpentine, but it's so faint. And with the monofilament, it just blends right into everything. And I remember when I did Hunter Star, it looks like it's just part of the stippling because I stippled it, and it looks like it's part of the quilting. So, okay, so what do you think? Do you think you can do that? So what I'm going to do then is I'm going to continue down the quilt, and I'm going to finish putting all the strips on this way first, and then I'm going to do the two long ones this direction, and then I'm going to put binding on. Now on my quilt, I think I'll put the binding on the back, and I've done this on a couple of other like pillows that I put it on the back, turn it to the front, and zigzag it on the front, so I don't have to hand stitch it down. So I'll put it on by machine, I'm sure. Okay? So that is how you put the strips on. You just do one strip, and like I said, I always start from the same side all the way down. I'm going to do all the short ones, but I'm going to do the two long ones. Okay, so are there any questions? I can't wait to see your Let Freedom Rings. Are people working on it? I think people were working on it. And we're going to have it done just in time for Memorial Day, aren't we? So next weekend is Memorial Day weekend. And so just with that being said, I am not going to do a class next Sunday because I may have to go do the cemeteries for my dad. So I'm going to do, we're not going to have class next Sunday. But then the last Sunday of May will be the scan and cut class, and we'll cut fabric again. It's the Sunday, is that the 31st? I think it's the 31st. So let me look at my calendar to make sure I got the date right. Yeah, so next weekend's the 24th. So we will not have class next Sunday, and then I will have the scan and cut class on the 31st, on Sunday the 31st, okay? So I'm going to continue, I'm going to finish this up later. I'm going to go ahead and continue putting my strips on, and then I'm going to put my two long ones, I'm going to put the binding on, and then I will put a picture up later of it for you. Does anybody have any questions? Does this all make sense? See if we missed anything in our instructions. It says continue until all seams are covered and bind the edges of the quilt using your desired method. So if you want to hand stitch your binding, put it on the front, put your binding on. Otherwise, you can put it on the back. I usually put it on the back, and then I machine stitch it on. What do you use to hang this to the wall? I use, honestly, what I use, Colleen, I use binder clips, and then I binder clip, and then I use like little nails or like those little hooks that you can put on that they don't ruin your walls. What are those things called? Can't remember. Command hooks. That's what I use. I use little binder clips. I just have some little binder clips that I put on it. You could put some little loops on the back too if you wanted to hang it with, but I've always just used binder clips on everything. I do that at the store too because I have so many quilts and we do so many, we have so many things hanging. I use little binder clips. It works great. All right, so I'm going to finish this up tonight. Going to finish putting all the strips on, so I got a couple on for you. So isn't that pretty easy? Yeah, it looks a lot harder in the instructions once you get started doing it, and then see how much prettier it looks. It looks really pretty when you put them on. And then the front, you can't see it at all. It just adds to the stippling. You'll see it a little bit more in the, let me get the other quilt here. You'll see it a little bit more in the red, like over here. So let me get this so you can see. You can see it a little bit in the strips. So like here, can you see it? Like where I put down, you can, but it just looks like it's part of the wavy step, like the wavy part of the quilting. So that's what it'll look like. You'll see a little bit in here, but that's it. It just looks like it's part of the quilting. Okay? All right, so remember, the new store hours, we're going to be open Tuesday through Saturday. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday is 10 till 5, and Saturday is 10 till 2, okay, in both stores. I'm going to be in the Iowa City store starting Tuesday, and Tim will be in Davenport. We will have a little bit more hours later. These are going to be kind of temporary hours. And then we'll be open on Tuesday. I'm very excited about going back to work. And if you have any questions, you give me a call or get me through Facebook. You can message me through Facebook. And next week we will not have class. 31st will be the next class. We'll have a scan and cut class. And then in July, the Feathered Star. That was a Hoop Sisters quilt, Lynn. Did you like the Feathered Star? That is a beautiful, beautiful quilt. It about killed me doing that quilt because the patterns were very, at first the patterns were very poorly done, and so we had to do a lot of making it work. It was a beautiful quilt. I did love it when it was done, and the bigger quilt was fine. It was the smaller ones that were the problem. But I know they've fixed it now, but it was just really hard when I was doing it and had 30 or 40 people doing the class with me. So yeah, I loved the Feathered Star. That one's old though. I think you can get it now. It's not just the block of the month anymore. I think you can just buy it now. So okay, and then July, like I said, we're going to be doing We Whisk You a Merry Christmas. That's one of the things we'll do, and it'll be starting, I'm not sure, maybe the weekend after the 4th. See, the 4th is on a weekend this year. Isn't it on Saturday? The 4th of July is on Saturday. So we'll probably do it the following week, starting the following week. Because the 4th's on the weekend this year. So, okay? So are there any other questions? Everybody understand how to finish up your wall hangings? Make sure you post pictures because I'd like to see them. And we will be seeing you in the store soon, so come visit us. And we hope to have some sewing machines to sell pretty soon. We're really low on small machines, so. And yep. So I have to, and I get a massage tomorrow. I'm so excited. My massage therapist is open, so I get a massage tomorrow. I have to go buy Dad some groceries and me some groceries. So, okay. So if you have any questions, message me, text me, or email me. And I hope to see all of your Let Freedom Ring soon. And we'll be seeing you. And remember, not next week, but on the 31st. So we'll have a week off next week. So see you soon. Come see me this week if you're in Iowa City. Good night. Bye.